My name is Catherine Howard. I'm an enrolled member from the Spirit Lake Nation, and I'm 70 years old. And my Indian name is Wawokianwi, helps other women. I got this Dakota name from my grandma, because my dad was a good hunter. And when my dad brought back any kind of like deer, beaver, anything, we never ate it alone. We used to always, my gram, after they finish butchering and stuff, and then they pass it to the neighbors. And my grandma was blind, and one day she sat down and named me Wawokianwi because my dad is always helping the neighbors. Mom was always making moccasins and gloves for the neighbors' kids. So that's how I got my Indian name. And as I grew older and as I grew up, my dad and my mom divorced when I was 3 years old. And my grandma took over on me, and I got raised by my grandmother. And when I was 13 years old, my grandma passed away, so then they transferred me back to my sister's house, Sylvia Brownchill. And I got to know my mom then. I didn't know who my mom was. And they never told me, I don't know why they never told me who my mom was until when I was 13 years old, I knew who my mom was. And I got to move in with my mom, and I stayed with my mom. And closer, but I still had to stay in Sylvia Brownchill's home. She's the one that pushed me through school. It was a lot of fun as I growing up. And I graduated from the 8th grade, and I was going to push myself into 9th grade. And my dad I have an older sister and her name is Christine Kavanaugh. And she was an alcoholic, and her husband was an alcoholic, and nobody could raise those kids. They didn't want to put them in a foster home, so my dad told me to quit school, and I helped raise my sister with the kids. And I did for so long, I couldn't handle all of them, and I moved out of that home. And I think I must have been about 14 years old, about a year ago after I quit. Then I moved back to my sister's house. I said I couldn't handle all those kids. And so my sister lost all her kids to foster homes, And then I stayed and graduated, and I worked here at Precious Bases. And then when I was 50, I think it must have been about 42 years old when I went back and got my GED. I finished my GED, then I started working. I worked a lot of places on the res. I did a lot of work and then I got married my first marriage when I got married when I was 16. This guy came back from the army, and then we went out. They always had powwows, and they all had round dances, kahominy. And then I got married when I was 16. I didn't know what I was putting myself into. I never knew anybody telling me that they loved me or cared for me all that time. And this guy kind of did. He went back to the army. When he came back to furlough, that's when we got married. And I was 16 years old, and I got married. And I was pretty young. My sister was kind of hesitating. You're too young to do this thing. But at that age myself, I thought I knew it all. And I stayed. We got married, and I think a year after we got married, we moved to Cleveland, Ohio. They used to send the families on relocation if you want to get educated or something. So we went on relocation, and we stayed over there about a year, and then about that year I got pregnant with my oldest boy. And we stayed over there about 2 years, and he started drinking and stuff. And my niece was over there. She said she was coming back to the reservation, so I caught a ride back with her. And when I got back to the reservation, I told my dad, I said, it was hard staying in the big cities, and I didn't want to stay. And so him and I got our divorce. My dad paid for my divorce. Then I stayed on the res, worked. I always worked. I never ever depended on anybody. I always challenged myself to look forward, push myself. And I was an alcoholic. I drank a lot when I was young. And then it went on till I met my second oldest boy's dad. We never got married. We were going to get married, but my dad said, "You did it once, and it never worked out, and you're still drinking." He said, "I advise you not to get married." So we never got married. But from that guy had a boy and a girl, but we lost our girl. I think that's when I and him separated because I don't know. It's just like when I blamed him. So I separated from him. I didn't marry that guy. And then I had my boy, and my mom and my dad raised me. I went potato picking to get his school clothes and stuff, and I lived with my mom. And it was a hard life. Sometimes you think back. When I think back, I always tell my boys, work, don't sit back and depend on somebody else because it's not going to work out. And my mom used to always tell me, find a place to stay. If you don't find a place to stay, to call your home, she always says that people will hate you if you stay at their house. No matter what you do, you'll never satisfy them. She always says that. So I've always fought to find a home. When the first thing I do is I find a place to stay, and I keep my kid, my boy in there. Then after I had Ivan, then I had my third boy and my fourth boy, and I got married. Then I married Melvin Peoples. He was an alcoholic, but he was a good father. He helped a lot with the children, and I worked, and he worked, and I worked, and we managed until drinking got in the way again. He drank too much. Every time he drank, he abused me. So then when my boy Ivan got older, he tries to help me, when he tries to hit me, and I didn't want my son to get hurt. So then I went to my sister Gladys Peltier, and I asked her if she could take him in. And I said, so I left my boy there, and then I moved back with his other two boys. I lasted about a year and a half, and then I divorced him. We got a divorce right on his birthday, and I never ever thought that I'll ever do that. And a year after that, he passed away from cirrhosis, and I don't know. That's what they say, but I don't believe it. I think he got hurt when the cops picked him up, and because they said they battered him in that drunk tank, and when they brought his body out, his head was bleeding, and when he was in his casket, the pillow was all full of blood the next day. So I don't know. I'll tell the boys it's up to you guys if you guys want to press charges on the cops, but they never did. So we just went on. And then when I was 50, when I was 51, 1994, I went back to Four Winds School, and I put in as teacher's aide. I worked there, whopped around in there at Four Winds, and the kids were going to school. Dean Dufany came up to me one time. He said, Catherine, he said, you should make use of your Dakota language. He said, you speak it, you write it, and you tell good stories. He said, what are you waiting for? I said, what do you mean? I said, go back to school. I looked at him, I don't have to go back to school to learn my Dakota language. Why should I go back to school? It isn't that's the reason why I'm telling you this. He said, get educated so you could come back into the school and teach these children. Yeah, I didn't believe him. I just went on. Finally, in 1954, I thought, well, and the teachers were all telling me. So I went back to school. I came here, and I went to Grand Forks. I went to Newtown. They sent us all over to take so I got, in 1957, I think I got my teacher's degree from the state of North Dakota. And I accomplished something. I said, I did it. I told Dean, see, you could do it, he said. I was scared because I can speak my Dakota language I can outbeat anybody talking. But I can never say my English is like the big words. I was trying to skip it, if I don't know it, the students in my class, how do you say this now? They say it for me, They finally found out that sometimes I make a mistake on my English. And then when I was 50, I think it's 57 when I went back and got my degree. And then I went on and in 1959, I went and got my driver's license. All these years, I think it was I don't know what year it was, but I lost my driver's license from driving under influence of alcohol. I got picked up, and all that years I drove for my parents and my sisters when they want to go to weeks, I go take them. All the years I drove without driver's license. But when we're going to take off, my sisters will pray, we get there saved, pray, come back. Maybe Tukanshana helped me, but I got my driver's license back. I think it was 1958 when I got my and I still have my driver's license. So I accomplished those ones into my life, and it was fun. And teaching the Dakota language at the school in high school. When I was in I would teach kindergarten to 5th grade, then they transferred me from 5th grade to 8th grade. Then I teached there for about like 7 years. And then high school was trying to hire a teacher to teach the high school junior to senior, but there was nobody that couldn't qualify for it. So then the principals got together and they how would you say, they barred me down there. I still work for the middle school. They barred me down for 1 year till they could go. And I'm down there I think it's 17 years I'm teaching in high school. I'm still down there, but I'm under the middle school, But it's fun. Some people always say, how can you handle to teach the high school? But I survived because they all know me, so the kids, and it's fun teaching them. Some of the students will come in there. I teach some of them that are ready to have a baby or they're pregnant. But I was telling them, education, you get educated, you're going to be good, you're going to support your child, encourage them to come back into. So I think from the time I worked, I think I graduated, gave credit to about 11 parents. The women, the girls, some of them come in there, they're 14, 15 years old to have a baby. Don't give up. You pick that choice. So you're not doing this for yourself, you're doing it for that baby. And when you grow up, and some of the students that I told them to work at the casino, I go over and congratulate them, hey, gee, I'm glad you're doing good, Keep up the good work, Kunshi, I got a job, everybody calls me Kunshi, that's grandma. And it's just like a family, Sometimes when I don't go to work, if I get sick, I miss the student. Like now, I miss the students every day because in the summertime. And the students is just like a family, Some days, you feel down, you go to work, the student, what's wrong, Kunshi? What anybody say anything to you, they know you right away. So it's fun to be a teacher, and I'll say I'm going to retire, but I don't know when that's going to come. Because if I retire, I'm going to miss those students. And it's fun. A lot of the high school especially, they come into with a lot of problems, Some of them have to babysit when the parents are drinking. Some of them gamble. The parents have to go. He doesn't know how I always tell them, you don't have to have new dresses, new coats, to have education. Come in the way you are. I said, I teach here many years, but you don't see me dress up with fancy clothes. I said, I come the way I feel like, and that's the most important from is the way you are. Don't ever try to be anybody else, And they believe that, and they come into class. At times sometimes when you think about it, education is important. I said, I learned that the hard way. I said, when Dean told me that, you can do it, And I argued him about not getting my education. But after I got my teacher, I can control my own class, do whatever I want. So it's nice that way, And then the high school, we work on 7 values. And the 7 values is very important. It'll change your life. When we worked on our 7 values, when when the students, I don't read it every day, but I have it hanging on the wall. Talk about certain ones sometimes. Some of the students that come in there were heavy chewers and heavy smokers. By the time 9 months come, I want to have two of them that smoke, and the rest of them one chew once they'll quit, you know. And it's not telling them every day just what they see, what we talk about. I have a coffee can in my class Monday morning when the students come in. How many of you guys broke the circle during the weekend with alcohol, gossiping, and all that? Don't tell me, but write it down. What all you did, they write down what all they do bad during the week. Tear it up, they put it inside that coffee can. Friday, all the students, we go outside, we stand in a circle, we ask Tukashina for forgiveness for breaking the circle, and we burn everything. So nobody knows what they put in there. So that helps the students, you know, so they bring out their feeling. They don't want to tell anybody. They don't trust you, but they trust Tukashina. So the smoke that goes up, Tukashina hears your prayers and you're going to be stronger, you know. So there is a lot of stuff that I do in my culture class. Sometimes you wonder, you know, why we're here. We're here because we want to educate ourselves, aren't we? Students will all smile. And sometimes I tell them jokes, you know, make them feel good that they're in my class. So there is a lot of things that I enjoy teaching, and I don't think I'll ever give up my teaching. And when the students camp, they have culture camp for the last 8 years. I never missed one of them. Even if I don't put in my application, they still hire me in there, you know, as a counselor. So I work with them. So there is a lot of fun in working with students, you know.